بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب زدني علما.
So already we discussed what is DHCP. DHCP basically stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. With this, we'll configure the DHCP server. The client will send a request and get the IP address. Okay, so let's try to understand the process. Okay, so the second thing, we'll try to understand the process here. We call it as a DORA process. Now, the DORA process, we call it as a discover. That is what the DORA discover, offer, request, and acknowledgement. So, in short, we call it as a DORA process. So, how the process goes? The first one is the discover option. So, in the discover option, what happens is the client. Now, the client can be any device. It can be a PC, or it can be a laptop, or it can be a mobile phone, or it can be an IP phone, or it can be IP cameras connected in the network, any device it can be in the LAN. It's going to send out a request, the broadcast request, where it tells, this is my MAC address. It's going to tell its own MAC address. And then it is going to say, I want an IP address. So it's a request, and this request actually goes as a broadcast. Now, the meaning of broadcast means it will go to each and every device within that particular LAN or within the VLAN. So if you know the VLANs concept, the broadcast goes within the VLAN or within the LAN, the broadcast domain concept in general. So it's going to simply ask, could anyone give me an IP address? We call it as a DHCP, a discover message, a broadcast request. So a simple example, like whenever you connect your device, any new device you connect, it will immediately initiate this request. Now the broadcast request actually goes to each and every device, everyone. Like if I just try to make a network diagram, let's say I got a router here and we got some devices, all the devices, and there is a new client I'm connecting. And this is going to send a broadcast request. The broadcast goes to everyone. Okay. It will also go to the router. It will go for every device in the LAN. And of course, everyone ignores because they simply ignore saying that I don't really bother about this broadcast because I'm not the DHCP server. So it's going to send a discover message. But now here we have the DHCP server here. Okay, so we have the DHCP server who is also receiving this broadcast. Now this is really bothered to reply. Okay, so now the DHCP server is going to reply back as a unicast normally, that saying that yes, do you want an IP address? Something like this. It will give the IP address, any one IP from the pool. Of course, on the DHCP server, we are going to configure the pool and we are going to tell what will be the IP address it has to use, or what is the network ID, and what is the range, and what is the DNS address, what is the DHCP, what is the router address. All this information we will be manually giving to the DHCP server. So it's going to tell this is the IP address, this is the subnet mask, this is the default gateway, this is the DNS server. All this information, it will send out an offer message. That is typically the second message. The second message is sending an offer back to the client. Mostly it will be unicast or broadcast. So now there is a possibility that you might have a multiple DHCP servers. So now, even though you are sending an offer message, now the DHCP client has to acknowledge. Acknowledge is basically like the next, before it acknowledges, there's a request. So it's going to say, yes, I want to use this IP. So in the previous stage, it just offered. Now it's up to you whether you accept or reject, because there is a possibility if you have a multiple DHCP servers, it might reject. So it depends. Mostly, it has to send a reply saying that yes, I want to use that IP address. So this is like a confirmation of saying that I want to get this IP address. Finally, it will send an acknowledgement. Now, acknowledgement is like a confirmation that this IP has been allocated to this particular client. And then it will write down that this IP is being given to this particular device. Let's say MAC 1, MAC 2, whatever the MAC address, okay? And we can verify this binding as well. In the Cisco routers, we use a command called show IP DHCP bindings, where we can see for which MAC address, what is the IP address given, okay? So not only just IP, it will give the IP address, uh, DNS, even the default gateway. These all address information. So if we just take this in a real scenario, a simple example, nowadays we use a Wi-Fi in our home. So if you're just going to your friend's house or to the relative, you connect your mobile phone to the Wi-Fi, you get the IP address. And this all process happens in the backend. And the DHCP server will be your Wi-Fi router. Mostly here as the same thing in my network also, the Wi-Fi router is pre-configured with the DHCP, so which is responsible for assigning the IP address. Now, in our course, again, we might be learning how we can do the same thing on a Cisco router or a Cisco switch in a bigger scenarios, how it's going to be done. So this is the second thing we need to understand, the DORA process.